I'm Natasha Kirchuk, and thanks for joining us from our studios in Israel. Coming up in today's newscast, Guatemala announces plans to move its embassy to Jerusalem. Hamas celebrates a terror attack that left 4 Israelis injured. And if you're a foodie, get ready because Israeli truffles may be the next big thing. Stay tuned for the latest news in Israel. The Central American country of Guatemala has made a historical choice and will be moving its embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem just 2 days after the U.S. Embassy is set to make the very same move.
Esta es una decisión soberana y como decisión soberana reconocemos a Jerusalén como la capital de Israel. En mayo de este año se celebra el 70 aniversario de la creación del Estado de Israel y hemos instruido que 2 días después de que los Estados Unidos de Norteamérica traslade su embajada, Guatemala regrese y traslade permanentemente su embajada a Jerusalén.
Guatemala was one of only a handful of countries that backed U.S. President Donald Trump when he made his decision back in December to recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital and move the U.S. Embassy to the city. The international community does not recognize Israeli sovereignty over the entirety of Jerusalem, and the Palestinians want East Jerusalem as a capital of their future state. But despite the international backlash, Guatemala has stayed loyal to the United States and will be moving its own embassy as a nod of support for Trump. The United States provides important financial aid to Guatemala, and the U.S. president has threatened to cut off aid to countries that support the UN resolution condemning his Jerusalem announcement. Before 1980, Guatemala actually had an embassy in Jerusalem, along with a dozen other countries, but after Israel passed a law proclaiming Jerusalem as its indivisible and eternal capital, the UN Security Council called on Guatemala to move its embassy to Tel Aviv. The Guatemalan leader Morales says the decision to move the embassy back to Jerusalem isn't only a show of support for the United States, but also for Israel.
Un honor y es lo correcto.
It is an honor and it is the right thing to do.
Well, thank you. Thank you, friend.
Morales maintains an important base of conservative Christian support in his country, but has faced threats of impeachment for corruption. Well, it's going to be a busy week in Washington, D.C. 18,000 pro-Israel supporters are flooding AIPAC's annual conference, and Prime Minister Netanyahu is meeting with U.S. President Donald Trump later today. This marks the 5th meeting between the two leaders since President Trump took office last year. The two are discussing the Iranian nuclear deal, President Trump's declaration of Jerusalem as a capital of Israel, and the White House's proposed peace deal. The annual pro-Israel AIPAC conference has kicked off down the street with a very strong opening. The executive director of AIPAC is declaring that the Palestinians should have a state and that peace is still possible even if it feels very distant. The conference will have many notable speakers, including the Vice President of the United States Mike Pence and U.S. Ambassador to the UN Nikki Haley. The Israeli Prime Minister himself will also speak at the conference tomorrow. So far, Israel's ambassador to the United States, Ron Dermer, has taken the stage to focus on Iran, vowing that the 2015 Iran nuclear deal must be restructured to ensure that the Iranian regime can't get its hands on weapons. Avi Gabay, the newly elected leader of the Zionist Union, is using the platform to knock settlements and call for a demilitarized Palestinian state. In the meantime, a large group of pro-Palestinians have taken to the streets outside of the conference to protest against Israel. The protests are expected to continue until the conference ends on Tuesday. Israel's Supreme Court president has just announced an official investigation into the alleged collusion between the head prosecutor in Case 4000 against Prime Minister Netanyahu and the judge presiding over remand extensions in that same case. ILTV's Aaron Porras joins us in the studio with the story. Now, Aaron, what is the committee looking for?
Really, the committee is looking for anything, and the panel of judges that's been created to look into Judge Poznansky-Katz's actions said that they found a series of serious and personal systemic failures in her actions in preliminary investigations.
Now, are there going to be any criminal charges that will be filed?
As of right now, no. There are no criminal charges filed, although several, including Justice Minister Ayelet Shaked, have called for disciplinary hearings.
Okay. All right. Now, Prime Minister Netanyahu is currently traveling in the U.S. As we said, well, he's actually in the U.S. already. He's going to the White House. He's going to be speaking at APAC tomorrow. And meanwhile, we received word that the Netanyahu's media advisor, Nir Hefetz, is actually turning state witness against him. What is the Prime Minister's reaction to everything that is happening with investigation right now?
All right. Well, Netanyahu and his wife Sarah actually have just, after being questioned again last week, have been issued a gag order on case 4000 actually. So they're not saying anything. Although all up until this very moment, he's continued to say, you know, I'm innocent, I've done nothing, you'll find nothing because there is nothing. That being said, you know, Nir Hefetz turning state witness has got to be worrying. But again,
well, we're
you know,
about to get into that in our next interview. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, well, we have some breaking news to report. What we just spoke about, Nir Hefetz, one of Prime Minister Netanyahu's closest aides, has just turned state witness. Hefetz is suspected of receiving bribes and obstructing justice as part of Case 4000. And here to tell us more about this development is Davidi Hermelin, the president of the International Center for Public Diplomacy in Israel. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, so how significant is this specific development in the case?
Not too much, because let's assume that Mr. Hefetz will say everything the police said until now is true. So what? Everything the police said is normal, legitimate behavior by Prime Minister. And to try to make such a, how to say, flexible manipulation, and to say that those actions that was made by the Prime Minister are illegal, this is something so ridiculous that we can call it no other thing.
Well, but the police are recommending that he's indicted, right? So is it normal for the police to need so many key state witnesses in these investigations?
I studied law, so I can tell you that you take a state witness if the evidence are weak. So the big number of state witnesses, this is a proof that all the evidence that the police has so far are not just weak, but ridiculous.
Well, why do you think Nir Hefetz decided to turn state witness? I mean, he's a very close advisor to the Prime Minister.
Imagine yourself that you are for days and weeks in very bad conditions in prison. You believe that you are innocent, and they broke him. And you know what? I don't blame him, and I'm not worried, because again, even if he will say everything the police said until now is true, it's okay. This is the big absurd here, that people are telling us there is a sun during the day. It's a crime. No, it is not. This is politics. This is legitimate.
Well, this is your opinion, right? So
this is the opinion of big majority in the Israeli public, and you can see that in the polls. The reflection of that, you can see it widely in the polls.
Yeah, well, that's what I would like to talk about. We are seeing polls that do show Netanyahu's Likud party is actually rising. Is there going to be a snap election that comes up as a result of this?
I truly don't know, but I want to be a little bit sharp here and say that it will not end with Netanyahu. In the next Knesset, whatever, there will be investigation by the parliament to investigate the police during the last 25 years, how they tried, you know, the theories of Trump, of the deep state. We actually see that here, that for 25 years, any minister of police, responsible for the interiors, and any minister of justice, when they came from the right wing or from the center, like Mr. Ramon, and they've tried to make reforms, suddenly someone charged them. And just take from the left side, Mr. Ramon, what happened. This is tragedy, and it will be stopped, and we will be very aggressive from now. Very aggressive.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
The Palestinian terror group Hamas is praising a car ramming attack that left 4 Israelis injured yesterday afternoon. 2 soldiers, a border police guard, and a civilian were all lightly injured after being hit by an Israeli Arab man driving a Hyundai SUV. A soldier at the scene managed to shoot down and subdue the attacker, who was later reported to be from the Arab-Israeli town of Shafram. Hamas has issued a public blessing for the attacker, saying, quote, "We bless the heroic and brave Akko operation," which is an important step in continuing the resistance against the crimes of the occupation. The Israeli president is vowing that the perpetrator will be held responsible for the crime, which was shockingly entirely caught on security cameras. The assailant can be seen streaking through an intersection and striking a uniformed border police guard and later 2 soldiers and a civilian. The terrorist has been apprehended and is still alive, but the entire investigation has been put under gag order. Police say they know the identity of the driver and claim his motives were purely nationalistic.
האירוע התחיל בשעה 11:30 לערך כאשר דווחנו על כך שנעשה ניסיון או שנעשה פגיעה באיש כוחות הביטחון. מה קדם לזה או מה בדיוק הוביל לאירוע הזה, זה בדיוק מה שנמצא כרגע בבדיקה.
A series of anti-Semitic incidents are being investigated in Poland just days after Poland passed a controversial law making it illegal to say that the Polish people were complicit in the Holocaust. Polish police are looking for the vandals who spray-painted xenophobic slogans on the door of an educator and guide at the Auschwitz Museum. The victim is an Italian citizen who has been working with the Holocaust Museum for over a dozen years, and he came home to find his door vandalized with slogans including "Poland for Poles" and "Auschwitz for Poland Guide." The perpetrators have not yet been identified, but the incident comes just a week after the curator of education in Poland's Malopolska region posted on Twitter, claiming that Auschwitz should only have Polish guides because there's a foreign and not Polish narrative at the museum. Meanwhile, a Polish sock company is in trouble for naming one of its products after Adolf Hitler. The Auschwitz Museum submitted a complaint to the company Nanuszki, which was marketing an Adolf sock character complete with black hair, Hitler's iconic mustache, and X's for eyes. Now Nanuszki has changed the character's name to Patrick, saying the sock character was meant to be a satirical and ironic character and wasn't trying to offend anyone. Shortly after the end of World War II, 300 American veterans decided to volunteer to sail 10 ships from the United States to Europe to help rescue 35,000 survivors of the Holocaust. Their goal was to bring the Jewish refugees to Israel, but when they attempted to approach Haifa, the British had other plans. Joining us in the studio to tell us about the remarkable journey is one of those U.S. sailors, Murray Greenfield. Thanks so much for coming in.
Glad to be here.
Now, you've written an incredible book about this, The Jews' Secret Fleet, but let's talk about first why you decided to volunteer.
Oh, that's a good, okay. Well, I'm a born American. I served in World War II in the Merchant Marine. But I brought up a very Jewish family. And I knew a lot about the Holocaust. And my decision to really join after I had learned about it, and surreptitiously, it was not an open subject to join up.
Right.
We met people who told us, not people, one person who started to tell you, we needed you, we need guys like you. I was in the Merchant Marine, we need men who know how to sail ships. And he, after he explained the whole story, which I didn't need because I knew about the Holocaust, I knew a lot about it. My parents had come from Poland many years before. Well, I asked him a simple question, what do you get paid? And he said, there's no money. I joined. And not only me, but 300 other American boys.
Right, there are a lot of you who went over there. So what happened? What happened when you first saw these Holocaust survivors board the ship? Because at the time, there were no images really of what was happening, right?
We really didn't understand what we were doing either. We knew what we were doing, we didn't understand what was going to happen. But we brought a vessel from the United States. The vessel built before 1918, was built before 1900.
Yeah.
It was one of 10 that came from America. We arrived into Europe. We rebuilt the vessel to carry 1,500 people, a very small vessel. And we were then told where to go. And we sailed our vessel. We took it all the way to Italy and off the coast of Italy in a small place, not a dock. We went right on to the beachhead. And we loaded people on 2 different nights, surreptitiously, against the wishes of the British.
Yeah.
And then we sailed for Palestine.
And you saw these people. I mean, obviously, it must have been very shocking as a young Jewish man to see this reality.
You're right. More than shocking. It was frightening. These were not young, they're old people. These were young people. They, one of a kind. They didn't have families. They were singles. There were no couples. And they told us their history. And every minute you talk with them, you found a new world. You had to know their language. It was Yiddish. I knew Yiddish because I was brought up in a Yiddish parents. And so I could talk with them. And the whole trip, day in and day out, was every day I found another Holocaust.
So you tried to bring these Jews to Israel, but were turned back from the British, and you ended up in Cyprus,
We
right?
stopped by the British. They unloaded us, put us on another vessel, and brought us to Cyprus to put us in camps behind barbed wire.
Which was crazy. And how long were you there for?
Several months. But let me show you a picture of me behind barbed wire. By some kind of a fluke in life, I have a person, a person took a picture of me behind barbed wire. And not only me, but of a few of us. And here it is. Can you see this? This is me. This is Harold Katz.
Yeah.
He's still alive here. This is Hugh McDonald.
Yeah, I'd like to show this to the
these
camera
are all
for our viewers
Americans.
to see.
These were sailors. Some of them, you see the barbed wire behind? There's
Yeah.
barbed wire. And this is what we found. And we were shocked. 1947, Jews are behind barbed wire, and I'm with them.
Now, I mean, unfortunately, we're running out of time, so we're going to have to wrap up our interview. But this is a very interesting and much longer story, which hopefully we'll be able to get you to tell at another point.
We'll come back.
Absolutely.
Want to see this picture?
Yeah, there's another picture.
This is me alive. I'm 91, you know.
He's 91 years old, my friend.
That's me in Cyprus. This is Harold Katz alive. That's him in Cyprus. He's alive also.
All these refugees eventually made it to Israel, right? And that, that's the most important thing here.
They built the country.
It's a beautiful thing that you did, obviously volunteering, again, for no money whatsoever to help, these people out. And thank you so much for joining us and telling us a little bit about this piece of history.
Yes, I think you should mention my book again, if you don't
mind.
The Jews'
Secret Fleet,
everybody. It was a secret then. It's a secret until I wrote the book.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Nasha.
All right, the world's second largest cycling race, Giro d'Italia, is set to begin in Israel in just 2 months. And 5 of Italy's top cyclists have just arrived to get the lay of the land. This week, 5 former cycling champions from Italy are riding through Israel's north, south, and center. They're guests of Israel's tourism ministry, and they're being accompanied by a delegation of sports journalists as they promote cycling tourism in Israel. The big Giro d'Italia race is set to take place on May 4th through 6th. And 176 of the world's top cyclists will kick off the event. The race, which begins in Jerusalem, will mark the first time in 101 years that a grand tour will take place outside of Europe. Tens of thousands of tourists and cyclers are expected to arrive in Israel for the big race, which is set to take participants through Israel's unique landscapes, from the north of Israel to the tip of the Red Sea. The event will finish up in Italy. Now, here's some exciting news. The work of one of the most influential artists of the 20th century is about to be displayed in Tel Aviv starting this week. None other than Pablo Picasso himself. That's right, Picasso's artwork will be visible to the public, and here to tell us more is the creator of the exhibition and art gallery, Sofia Shapkina. Thanks for joining us. All right, Sofia, so how did Pablo Picasso's work get to Israel?
So first of all, I need to tell you some things about our gallery. Our gallery is an international one. So the first branch in Moscow, and the second one we have opened in Tel Aviv. So the main important thing about our gallery, the specialization of our gallery, is etchings and engravings and lithographs.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's
so
something special.
How did Pablo Picasso get thrown into the mix here?
So 1.5 years ago, museum in Jerusalem has opened its exhibition in honor of Pablo Picasso. Wow. And now we just decided to continue the line of Pablo Picasso here in Tel Aviv, so that's why we have decided to open it here.
This is amazing. So when can the public, first of all, go and see this artwork? How long will the gallery be open for?
So we're going to open our doors from 8th of March until the 11th of April.
Okay, great. And are there any specific pieces that stand out that you think we should keep our eye out for?
Yes, the name of our exhibition is Mystery of Picasso. And that's something specific, something intimate from Pablo Picasso.
Very cool.
And what you're going to see on our exhibition is his passion, his desires, and that story of his life, story of his love, story of his woman. So that's the most interesting thing in our exhibition.
All right, well, thank you so much for joining us, Sophia, and telling us about this. I know there are so many people who are going to be very excited to check this out.
Thank you.
Well, as an avid animal rights supporter, I am more than excited to say that Tel Aviv is gearing up for its 5th annual Vegan Congress. Thousands of people are set to attend the 2-day event, which will discuss the future of the food industry, and ILTV's Emmanuel Kadosh has the scoop.
Thanks, Natasha. Well, as I'm someone who has been trying their hardest to stop eating meat for the past couple of years, I'm beyond excited for this Vegan Congress. I didn't attend last year, but I heard it attracted over 1,500 participants and was extremely informative. Vegan Friendly Israel has put together an international roster of experts and activists for the 2-day Congress that's set to be held this week, March 8th and 9th. Some of the lectures will include women like Shiri Raz, who will be talking about the key points in developing human consciousness. For example, she's discussing some reasons why eating animals during a different time period was okay and why it's not in today's modern world. Chen Cohen will be presenting an overview of all the news and developments that took place this past year within the animal rights and vegan movements. Omri Paz is set to discuss the future of veganism and how to reach the critical mass. Just a bunch of amazing lectures that can be expected.
Now, Israel has the most vegans per capita in the world, which is why it makes sense that this is an annual event. Almost 5% of Israelis are vegan. It's huge here.
Right, and with that, it turned Israel into a prominent destination for vegan tourism. There are tons of vegan tours all over the country and tons of vegan restaurants as well. The main goals and intentions of this upcoming Vegan Congress is to provide awareness and compassionate support for animals and to advocate veganism through a variety of different events, activities, and lectures.
Well, hopefully you and I will start having a bit more power and start being vegan friendly.
Hopefully.
And maybe this Congress will help us do that. Thanks for joining us, Emmanuel.
Thank you.
All right, truffles are more than just tasty. For thousands of years, they've been incorporated into the culinary and medicinal traditions of North Africa and the Mediterranean. So if you thought that they're mainly a European delicacy, think again, because Israeli desert truffles, yes, Israeli desert truffles may now be a culinary trend. Wild desert truffles aren't as rare as European forest truffles, but they're still considered a delicacy nonetheless. They're often compared to the taste of foie gras, and because they have a less powerful aroma and taste than European varieties, well, they can be sliced, seared, fried, and used in slow-cooked dishes. Best of all, Israeli desert truffles are said to run for about 1/10 of the price of their European counterparts. Right now, the Institute for Desert Research at Ben-Gurion University is doing an experiment in the Negev to see just what it takes to cultivate these rare desert gems. Their team is working to cultivate new crops of farm truffles that can specifically flourish in the Negev's harsh, dry conditions. 2/3 of Israel is made up of desert, so if their plan works, they could end up transforming Israel's south into a culinary center. The Israeli Negev has already been attracting foodies through its revived ancient Nabatean wine route and a handful of boutique family-run cheese farms, but a truffle farm could boost the industry. Researchers hope that the first model farm will be established within the next 2 years. And now for our Hebrew word of the day. Today's word, since we're basically in the middle of one, is midbar, meaning desert. Now, you'd think that it's basically impossible to use a midbar to grow crops, but Israelis have proven just the opposite. 2/3 of Israel is made up of midbar, so it's no surprise that Israelis have figured out how to grow vegetables in the midbar, and now truffles. Plus, there's even a huge Israeli festival in the Israeli desert, just like Burning Man, and it's called Midburn. Get it? So here's our advice. When you come to Israel, make sure to visit the Midbar. It has a lot to offer. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the weather forecast. Tonight you can expect mostly clear skies and a low of about 63 or 17 degrees Celsius, but tomorrow should be nice and sunny with a slight drop in temperatures to a high of 72 or around 22 degrees Celsius. All right, that's it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.45 shekels to the American dollar. Remember to sign up for our daily newsletter at iltv.tv. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook at Israel English News and on Twitter at ILTV News. I'm Natasha Kirchuk, and thanks for watching.